And Philip, I know that you said you had a question that you could use some consultation on. Give us the game, my friend.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeremy. I hope Unai, we're doing wise crowds. I hope that
He knows, man.
Oh, he knows, man. Okay, good.
Oh yeah.
So my request is really not well, it is more of an invitation. I'm going to teach a class tomorrow in front of, well, on Zoom, but to about 20 Chinese students that come from on an exchange program from China to France, and we're gonna go through a program of basically human resources and resource management, which is a bit classical, but I would want your help into how can I start the day with an invitation, or with that would be at the same time joyful and indirect, not necessarily what are you doing here, and on the other hand also open up a whole day where we're gonna do a lot of work together, a lot of so here is my prompt.
All right. So this is the point at which we're going to ask some clarifying questions. So what do you want to know more about? What maybe wasn't clear? Clarifying questions. Who's got them?
Yeah, I'm curious about what is the context of these students. I mean, what are the students? Is this a university thing?
Yeah, they're young students, okay, and they're bachelor students, and they come to France because they, both to, how do you say, continue their studies, but also practice it in French. So that's also an interesting dimension. It's not their mother tongue, and so one must be aware of that.
Okay, so the lecture is going to be in French.
Yeah, and we're not pals. There's definitely something cultural there.
Okay. Yeah, no further questions from my side.
Okay.
For how long?
It's going to be 3 days. It's going to be 3 days. Tomorrow is the first day, and then a week, and then 2 other days next week.
And your question for us is only for the kind of introduction, or is like you want to work? Yeah.
No,
also for like other
days. Just for the introduction. How do I invite them to this session of 3 days, and we can discover each other. We can get some ideas of who we are and what we want and what we but in a way that is not necessarily directly saying, hey guys, what are you doing in France, So
this is the very first session of the course. How long is the course going to be?
It's going to be 3 days. So it's on Zoom, and it's very long days. It's from 8 to 5:30.
Ooh, Jesus Christ. All right.
Oh.
That is grueling. And this is the first session. Okay. And in terms of like different roles or different people in the room, is it all students, and are they all in this exchange program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite homogeneous. It's quite homogeneous, I think.
That feels like the complete opposite of the point. Yeah. Okay.
I can give you an anecdote. Last time when I taught them to that class, not the same people, it was live, and I entered the room. There was not one single computer on a desk. There were only smartphones.
Ooh, okay.
That was a sight to behold. Everything was clean, was perfectly, and just the phone, and they did everything on their phone.
Interesting. Well, More clarifying. Any other clarifying questions? How long do you want to take to do this introduction?
I would like 10 minutes max, or between 5 and 10 minutes, if I can, or shorter, but a nice welcoming, basically, not super long.
Okay. Oh, nice. Welcome. Not super long. All right. And yep, go for it, Anai.
No, is like, do you want to, I mean, to harvest anything? Like, do you want to get a sense of what they say, or if you get like a few samples of two
Yeah.
people, you are satisfied?
No, it's something that can be how do you say, prolonged in the days to come. It can be the beginning of something. Like, it's like, maybe, I mean, I'm just dreaming here, but maybe like it's a small conversation that we might have at the beginning of every 3 days that is parallel to what we're going to do.
Well, what are you going to cover in the first day?
The first day is about, motivation. It's about leadership. It's about competencies. They're HR sort of notions. Yeah, leadership. Yeah,
Okay.
also power and authority. Which for me is very interesting, because I'm very conscious of something, which is basically, I come from the West, and we have a culture of in companies, and I presume that there is a profound disconnect between what we say and their reality, although they're very polite and they're here to learn or whatever, or at least to compare. But and so the idea is to not really boast too much, as if our way was the best way, and at the same time give them information about things that happen here. So this is what I feel about the specialty of this the special angle of this thing.
Cool. Any other clarifying questions?
Yeah, maybe like in short, how are the rest of the lessons? Like, is it you talking 8 hours, or like they are doing some exercises?
No. I'm talking I'm talking. I know they are put in groups, and they work within groups. What I do is I bring something to the table, like a concept or something, and then they play with it by studying companies or looking at real organizations.
Okay. Well, Philip, I'm going to invite you to mute yourself and turn off your webcam, and importantly, to listen while we chop it up about what you could do. So there's 2 questions. So one is sort of around activities, right? What could you do? How could we structure the time together? And then I think there's a second question that is perhaps the more interesting or challenging question, which is around what is this sort of particular question, the topic, the subject matter, the invitation that we might like these folks to discuss to start this whole journey off. So with that being said, what comes to mind for you guys? How might you want to start off a session with a bunch of homogeneous exchange students?
Well, I don't know. For me, the most, let's say, worrying kind of thing is that the amount of time that he will be with these students that, of course, they don't share the same culture, they don't share the same language with him, and if I understood well, it's around 8 hours, like morning and afternoon sessions. So I don't know, maybe I propose to talk about him to keep the engagement of people there. If I understood well, it will be an Zoom call, right? This is an online kind of plan. That for me is kind of the priority to bring on the table.
Load. Unai, what jumps out for you now?
Well, maybe more clarifying questions that you can answer probably. I mean, I understand that what Philip is asking for is something to do during the first 5 to 10 minutes of the first day and maybe the second and third day also, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the opening exercise, I think.
Yeah.
There's one thing that jumps out to me in terms of like 3 days. Like I like to think in narrative arcs. So the arc of setup, conflict, and resolution. So I wonder about that invitation, about the question itself. What is this setup? And motivation was what he mentioned, and we just had this conversation about value, and like I think that's an interesting sort of subject matter to set the thing up. Like, what is it that we want more of generally, in the world and in our life? When it comes to leadership, what is the direction that is sort of north to us? There's a particular question that's jumping out to me right now that uses this methodology called clean language. That is, what kind of leadership, or what kind of leadership, what kind of value is your value, so to speak, that invites people to, instead of give a direct answer, encourages people to think in a more metaphorical frame. Right? So whatever that is, what kind of motivation is your motivation? Could be an interesting starting point to get people to sort of think outside of the box. When I think about particular structures in like ways to organize the conversation, there's obviously something around if these groups are going to be stable, like having a brief icebreaker that gets them, helps the groups get to know each other, or there's something more elaborate. If he's in Zoom, he could do something like impromptu networking. That's only 15 minutes. Or abundant greetings is the easy one that sort of comes to mind. Abundant greetings would, put people in groups of, 2 or 3. 3, I think, is typical, and give each person like 3 minutes to respond to 2 or 3 different questions. And the traditional questions that are associated with abundant greetings are, who are you? On whose shoulders do you stand? So it's just kind of a question about who are your people, who's your tribe, whose support is significant for you. And the third question is often a little bit more fun. If you had to design your own T-shirt, what would it say? Right? So, it's good enough. It's an interesting place to start. Not particularly substantive, kind of light. And the format is in threes, like 3-4 minutes per person. You just go around the group. Simple enough. Anybody else?
I mean, I was also thinking about impromptu. I don't know, the other one you mentioned, Jeremy. And I mean, my feeling is like it's nothing constructive, but like 5 or 10 minutes out of like all those 8 hours is not much. Of course, like the first impression is important, I believe. But yeah, it would be super interesting to discuss more details of what happens during those 8 hours and how maybe some liberating structures can be included in other parts. But for those 5-10 minutes, from what I know, impromptu is okay.
Yeah, in a normal situation, especially if we are talking about motivations, I will invite them to go back to their infancy, to where they were a child, to connect with their inner child, to try to discover what was actually motivating to them when they were kids. And I will invite him to do that, but I don't know if this is a match within the Chinese culture. But if there is a feeling for experimentation, this can be also a valid resource for those first 10 minutes. But yeah, I mean, those 10 minutes for me are like crucial for keeping the interest of the whole day that he's gonna need to be there. If someone is speaking, probably is on mute because. Are you around, Jeremy?
There we go. Well, something's connected. How about now? Say something, nerds.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, cool. Is this you, Gustavo, again?
I'm disconnecting from my. Okay, cool.
Around this question, that around motivation. So a very interesting framework around motivation has to do with like past experience qualifying, inviting people to share what did you like to do a lot when you were a child, because this says a lot about the person that we become. So if you pick like an age of like 5 or 7 years old, you could also just ask the question, what did you love to do when you were a kid of 5? Or something along the line of like, what did you want to be when you grew up? That's maybe a little bit boring, but I think there's something interesting around what did you love to do? What could you just do for hours at a time when you were a child, and see what that reveals. In a group that is probably homogeneous, you'll probably get a lot of like quite similar information. In the field of HR, that my stereotype tells me is like, oh, expect a lot of girls in there, because HRs tends to be a caring, a place where people who care about people tend to go and work. You used to have a tendency of being female, whether I'm wrong or not. The way that the feminine archetype tends to want to communicate is to emphasize similarities. Like if in a group of guys, like my son is 6, right? And so if somebody says that they went to a place, the other boys went to twice as good of a place. If somebody said that they had chocolate last weekend, the instant once that comes out of one of these little fuckers' mouth, the other one goes, oh, I had more chocolate than you did, right? Whereas like it's just everything is a dick measuring contest with these little guys. Like I'm faster, no, I'm faster than you, and you're faster than so and so. But like it's always just this jockeying for position, and the desire to sort of like excel. But like my daughter pays just like she's a fucking caretaker. I don't know, didn't want her to love pink and shit like that. But little girls have this tendency towards like, oh, you did that, me too. You did that, me too. Like they emphasize similarity amongst them. So there's this question of like, what did you do as a child, especially in a homogenous group, could emphasize that. So could very likely emphasize that similarity. Basically, my long-winded way of saying shit. Phil, that's what we got for you, man. Come on back. Tell us what you think.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate both suggestion. I think that at one point somebody said something that was exactly true. It was like in my mind, maybe it was the thing was like to start something that is going to be extremely grueling and at the same time could be interesting. Interesting because first of all they have to do it, and interesting because the subject can be interesting, and the encounter can be interesting. So I quite like the idea of clean language. What kind of value is your value? Don't know how it fits in French this, but because I would love this idea of the metaphor. It's true that if one can start, saying something metaphorically, then it opens up a range of possibles that are really more interesting usually than if you try to pinpoint something. And then, of course, this idea of also the kids thing is also very interesting. Yeah, because it links their homestead to the place where they are now, to what they know and what they will learn. It's sort of interesting. So yeah, thank you very much. It's important that you actually gave me some real questions that I can think of and maybe tweak maybe a little bit, because that is also quite, that's where the finesse is what kind of, like when you say what did you love to do when you were a kid at 5, it has another ring of what did you what kind of things so it gives you some kind of things that are, I think, interesting to sort of bind some for a very temporary community. So thank you very much.
Word. There's also an interesting, I've been thinking a lot about invitations lately. I like to think about invitations as like approximately the equivalent of Mad Libs. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but I just want to think about like a universal structure for good invitations, right? Invitations have these 4 properties. They shouldn't judge or frame. They should be relatively abstract. They should be specific about the problem space, but ambiguous about how to look at it. And they should, what's the fucking 4th one? They should open up avenues for thinking. So I always think about what's the central topic and what are the 3 avenues I could open up for thinking. And those 3 avenues that I've been thinking about how to organize a cheat sheet that makes it coming up with good questions easy, basically relates to like the 3 avenues I want to open up tend to relate to like the yin, the feminine, the yang, the masculine, and the transcendent. No, excuse me, the immanent. The sort of interaction or dance in between the 2. So this is related to, I don't know if you guys know Forrest Landry's work around the immanent metaphysics. So it's the what is it? The transcendent, the omniscient, and the immanent is the 3 avenues I like to open up, because they tend to be very, very, very different. Like you could say they are the most different avenues for thinking you could possibly open up. So I was just looking at his whole, in the book, he's got a whole bunch of these triples that you can check out. That you might be able to find a particular triple that makes you go, that's pretty dope. That'll work. And away.
What's the book? What's the name of the book or the thing?
The Immanent Metaphysics. Forrest Landry is his name.
Forrest Landry.
Yeah. So the one of the triples I like that is pretty like consistent is like, again, whatever your central topic is, what are the visions, actions, and opportunities that come to mind, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to leadership, if that's your central topic, what are the visions, actions, and particular opportunities that come to mind when you think about leadership? But I got there's a whole fucking laundry list of all of these triples that you can grab. But I think to dumb it down version that is still pretty interesting. Here's the book. Is, for example, the internal is the transcendent, so the feminine. The external is the masculine, the omniscient, and the boundary is the immanent. So when it comes to leadership again, what is internal, external, and on the boundary that comes to mind? Like, this opens up 3 really dramatically different avenues for thinking. It centers your topic. It doesn't judge or frame. It satisfies all of the 4 qualities of a good invitation. There's a whole bunch. I can send some screenshots to you. I'll put them in the Telegram group if that's okay.
That would be lovely. That would be fantastic. I think it's really, yeah, it's really very interesting what you're saying. And
so with that being said, that's our first help request handled for the day. We've got ourselves about another half hour left on the clock. Does anybody else have a question, situation, or challenge that you would like consultation from this wise crowd of men with beards? I don't know. Does that count? You're just unshaven, Philip. Does that count as a beard? I don't know.
it's a beard. It's a
Sorry,
very
man. This is a
trimmed
beard. Now you are doing a very triggering statement.
Exactly. I once got into like this like Facebook flame war with these guys that were all about beards. When I was like had like literally a 3-day beard, I was like, check it out, this is my beard, and they were like, that's not a beard. I was like, fuck you, like my beard doesn't need to be a big beard to be a goddamn beard. So it's funny that I'm on the other side of that exchange. So like I said, coming back to our point, do we got any questions, challenges, situations that we want consultation on?
Not for today, no.
I can share one.
Give us the game, my friend. You know how it works.
Okay. So I was writing a bit, so I will read. So yeah, I'm contributing to an initiative within the Internet of Production Alliance. It's an alliance that aims to bring together people from around the world to build open infrastructures, enabling anyone, everywhere, to participate in production. So it's a peer-to-peer commons production. And then there is a big project for that, and we are working on a small chunk of it, where we want to create standards around contracts and business models. And specifically, we are focusing on contracts. And we want to map different methods or tools that different organizations, groups, whatever, have been using to increase dependability on peer production networks. So we call it dependability in terms of like reliability. How much can you rely on your peers to do what's necessary so that production happens? So not necessarily contracts. There can be other ways of ensuring that things happen. So yes, the goal of the session is to explore tools and methods that participants of the workshop are already using or that they are developing, so that we, the ones who are organizing these workshops, gain. And it would be also nice to kind of invite them to what we are doing so that they can also contribute to in general, to the Internet of Production Alliance, and in specific to what we are doing, developing these standards. So we have been mapping participants, potential participants. Yeah, we have a number of them. We don't know them like personally as such. Maybe some of them, yes. And the same among themselves, like they don't necessarily know each other, but maybe they do. And they come from very, very different, like experiences and places and everything. Yeah, it would be an online. Well, we are planning to organize a number of workshops, maybe 5 to 6 online, and around 2 hours of work. We expect to have at least like 5 to 10 participants in each of the workshops. I was being a bit lazy. I was checking like which liberating structures can we use. I had some ideas. So yeah, like the user experience fishbowl, for example, would be nice. And I listed some of them. But yeah, that's a bit in short.
Which would tell me more. What other structures do you get there on your short list?
I mean, definitely, yeah, like using one two for all sometime. What else? Let me check. A conversation cafe, drawing together. What else?
There's a how do you say, there is a structure called join together.
Drawing.
Drawing. Okay.
Cool. And okay, so clarifying questions. So the
Ecocycle, maybe, I don't know.
Ecocycle, sure. So let me just feedback what I picked up. So you're in this Internet of Production Alliance, and you're creating a commons around infrastructure, and your subject matter is going to be contracting. And what you're hoping to get from, it sounds like a small group of participants, 5 to 10 participants. What you want to get is a knowledge share around existing and good practice for contracting. And in terms of the participants, it sounds like a very diverse group of participants. Are they familiar with each other, or is this just grab people and throw them together? Okay.
Yeah, the second. Just like to clarify, it's not only about contracting. Like we talk about dependability. So to make sure that production happens, like you can use different. Actually, we have been talking about different dimensions for this to happen. So like economic, legal, social. Sometimes you don't need a contract; it's just a handshake, and that's all it works. Or sometimes you have a kind of a game, right? Like that incentivizes or pushes people or attracts people to behaving in certain ways. So it's not only about contracts, although, yeah, actually we were thinking of organizing different workshops around these different dimensions that we were kind of mapping. So technology, legal, social, economic, and ecosystem.
Technology, legal,
social, economic, and ecosystem. But also, like, that's a hypothesis. Like those dimensions, it's just something we made up. It's not like and probably like there are different tools and methods that fit with like different of those, a number of those dimensions. And so.
Okay. So, okay, getting more dependability is actually the goal of your session, like sharing knowledge around that topic. Okay.
Plus,
yeah.
Plus, ideally, getting them like involved, like interested in what we are doing and gaining contributors.
Cool. So I would have assumed that the people that would be participating in your workshop were people interested.
Yeah, I mean, we have been mapping them, but it can happen that we map the wrong people, or that if they come, for sure they will be interested. Like no one will come if they don't want to.
Okay.
When you say mapping, then what resources or what characteristics of each participant are you referring to? What are the information or data that you have from them?
not much. Like we were basically, we have their name, website, and we were tagging, like using different these dimensions that I mentioned. So if they are mainly working with technology, if maybe they are focused on legal methods, whatever. And also like maybe specifically if some of them are working on Web3, we would put in Web3. If some of them are specifically working in, for example, Africa, then we said Africa, but using tags mainly.
I will also explore what are the needs from each of those participants. As well as no, this is just no, I won't do it. No, nothing.
No. It's if we're
Yeah, no, it's just question.
Are there any other clarifying questions? I just want to make sure we get clarifying questions out of the way before we move to advice. Don't make up a clarifying question just because I asked if there are any more.
Who are you, Unai? Who are those people trying to do the thing?
Sensorica, which is another organization, and we are doing that contracting job for them.
I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know for other people, but I couldn't. You were mute for just the right part of that sentence. Can you repeat eventually what you said?
So the Internet of Production Alliance has like it's a big project, and they're working on a number of things to standardize different things. And Sensorica, which is like an open value network, is a peer-to-peer network of people working on open hardware. So they have been hired for that, and I am contributing to that effort together with 3 other people mainly. But it's like very open, you know. Like if you are interested, you can come and participants.
And how many people are in this alliance?
In the Internet of, I don't know, it's huge. I don't know, very big.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks.
So I'm gonna invite Unai to importantly listen as he mutes himself and turns off his webcam. I like that better, that flow better. First listen, then mute yourself. At any rate, Gustavo, you had some advice that you want to deliver right off the bat. Let's get it out there, man. Sorry for getting in.
Yeah, it's related to the mapping. I will focus on extending the information that you have on that map already. And what is coming to my mind is to map what they can offer to this group that you will be having there, what they can offer. If I understood well, they're like different. It's not only Syntonica, but also others organization of people. So yeah, map what they can offer to these new commons, and also what needs, general needs, not specific to this group. Of course, the specific to this group will be interesting, but also whatever other kind of needs they can raise, and then focus on how to link or bond those needs and offers. That was the first thing coming to my mind.
Totally. Like linking and leveraging needs and offers is like clutch, especially if you want to like create engagement, like then just figuring out like, hey, what might be something that we could do that satisfies one of these things that we need, that we have needs around, or with the resources that we have in this unique group. If we only spent an hour on this thing together, or every month for the next 3 months, what is something that we might be able to actually deliver? That's a great way to get a group to actually commit. Not necessarily, but if you think about something that small, you might be able to actually deliver something, and that feels fucking great to get you the buy-in from more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was thinking along the same terms, actually. For something smaller, it looks very big, but just to somehow play on the scale and do something on a scale that is more practical, rather than want to touch everything in in a deep way. I think that well, when I was listening to Unai's thing, I thought about open innovation. I thought about all these open software, all the things that have been done and that have very interesting governance. So maybe a good aspect would be to start, if you have to start somewhere, is to start with governance rather than, technical stuff. And the governance and to emulate the governance that exists already, because open source software has been working for 40 years or so, and it's done remarkable products that are still out there.
Yeah, I think that starting with governance can be very valid, but only if you have a lot of things defined, like what is the purpose of these people coming together? What is the objective in both long-term, like setting up the vision somehow, but also short-term, like what are the first practical things that we can deliver in a short amount of time, so people actually, they know that something is close, that they will work for that, and 1 month, 2 months after that, they can get it together, share what they have done, and in that way you actually demonstrate that this alliance is bringing value to them all.
So there's a lot of different structures that come to mind to play around this topic, for me at least. One that Unai did not mention is I like the idea of like working with a live case or a live scenario. Like if you could bring in someone who has a dependability issue and then get the group of participants to, again, leverage their expertises to sort of explore how they could help this person, that could reveal a lot of relevant information. In the big scheme of scenario planning as well, critical uncertainties comes to mind. Like critical uncertainties have us define what's critical for dependability and what's most uncertain about dependability. And then on the basis of those two axes of critical uncertainty, set up 4 scenarios, describe those scenarios, come up with some shorthand heuristic to name those scenarios, and then think about what your coping or your strategies would be to deal with that reality. So that seems like could be an interesting setup to sort of ground things in context, and then to work on it from there. TRIZ was the structure that first came to mind. Like if you want to create dependability, how do we create the least dependability possible to not only define the negative space of things we want to avoid and we'd rather not create, and then to think about additional strategies of how, all right, great that we want to avoid this clusterfuck. How do we actually manage the risk of this critical interruption of service? Feels like a good way to go. I like the idea of also growing the map of like the skill sets. So thinking about like a project, I think the risk and how does dependability, so the question that comes to mind is, how does dependability change in a service that is at different phases of the eco-cycle? So how do you think about dependability in gestation when you're just in an idea phase? Like there's still some relationship with dependability. Then there's the question of like, what do we mean by dependability? I've been really on about like, what is the distinction? So like to really ensure that we have a shared definition of what dependability is. Maybe that's already exists, but just to help ground that in the room with something like, what is dependability? What is dependability not? What are the parts of dependability? What is dependability a part of, right? So that we have a good understanding of the term that we're exploring together comes to mind. And then, of course, there's strategy not working. Going through the 6 questions, what makes the work significant, meaningful? Why does dependability matter is another way to describe that question. What is happening around us that requires creative change? I mean, I know that question seems more and more obvious the more times I say it, but still, to stick the landing on it. Paradox, what are the paradoxical challenges we must face in order to make progress given our purpose, or what seems possible in the here and now, and of course, where are we starting honestly, and how are we acting our way towards the future, checking what is possible as we go. So those 6 questions form the basis of strategy not working. And there's, of course, a bunch of structures you can use to answer each one of them. So in 2 hours, that's pretty tight to go through all 6 questions. But even doing something as simple as like 25-10 crowdsourcing, or getting a feedback on, of these 6 questions, when it comes to dependability, what's the order that we should handle them? And then just work through them in that order and see which questions are common across the groups. There's I do wonder as well, I can talk forever. My mind just goes forever and ever and ever. There is an interesting question about whether you want to do a custom session for each workshop and the cost that it will be required to design those, and whether or not you just want to design one workshop that you want to run 5 or 6 times. Like, economically speaking, that's going to cost you the least energy and get you lots and lots of collect more and more input around something similar. So that's what's jumping out for me. Anybody else?
I was trying to remember something about the future backwards or something like that. It's a good, you were talking about ideation, and that's a good, I was looking for the structure, I can't find it anymore, but something that goes retrospectively, because it's very interesting when you posit a very positive outcome, the opposite of Triz. Mm-hmm. And then you work backwards, and you try to define the events that leads backwards, and so you get a lot of how do you say, of genuinely interesting ideas doing so. So there is something about that maybe is interesting.
Yeah, so there's 2 structures that come to mind that just sort of fit the description. So the liberating structure and development that I think you're pointing at is future present. And then there is also a similar but quite different exercise that is in the Cynefin sense-making framework toolkit.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. Yeah, future backwards, actually.
Yeah, future backwards. Yeah. That one I'm not so familiar with, but there's a video that I did with Max on the YouTube channel, the Unai, that you can check out, where he walks me through that exercise as it relates to organizing an event.
Yeah, of course, it works really beautifully with critical uncertainties. Yeah. Because the critical uncertainty, you have to sort of embody somehow the situation that you describe, that the 2 axes are, create. So the 4 different plays. And then when you have to strategize about it, it's very interesting to see what happens when you use any kind of like these 2 structures. Cool. That allow you to somehow jump and in the future and go back and basically there's another one of those called Ideal Future by Jay Bloom. Anyway, all these structures are very good to come and support the critical uncertainty in particular. Strategy not working can be very, very difficult to do in 2 hours, I would say. but you can do it in six different how do you say, sessions.
For sure. That could be very interesting as well, to like hand the baton of one question over to a different group.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that would do two things that are very good for you, actually. That would require that you create an artifact that's easy enough for this new group to digest, like every time. So after the previous session, to summarize and say, hey, this is how we're going to tell the story of the work that these guys did, and you guys get the next step. Which of these questions seem like they're the most relevant for you? That's a lot of fun, a lot of more work, but for super cool. Dope. What was that other one that you said, Philip? Ideal futures?
Yeah, ideal future. That's Jade Bloom.
Cool. New toys, yeah. Ideal future. Dope. All right, Unai, come on back. Tell us what you got. Oh, appreciative interviews also seems super obvious. No, come back. You're back. You're here. You didn't go anywhere. Appreciative interviews also seems like it's full of possibility.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I was enjoying when you were talking non-stop, Jeremy. So yeah, I mean, what you mentioned at the beginning, definitely about the needs, like it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, why would they come? And yeah, giving and taking, right? And yeah, around like the definition of dependability, like definitely that's something that even for me it's not clear, so I would definitely include something like that. Yeah, I don't know, I was writing like all the suggestions, so I think I will share with the team, right? Like the idea of using live cases is I think is great also, right? Because they are already doing stuff. Yeah.
Well, what could, especially about that, be helpful? Because I mean, you can of course mine the group, see if there's anybody who has a challenge. But if you can go into your wider ecosystem and go, who is actually having dependability issues right now? Like, then you're actually delivering tangible value for somebody, in addition to this like theoretical framework that you're sort of building and creating artifacts of that stuff. And it's, could be very fun for your storytelling to say, hey, we looked in the group, we found some problems, we got some people together to work on those problems, and look at how much better the situation became. Narrative arc once more, set up conflict resolution. Dope.
What are those 6 questions you were mentioning?
Strategy cannot working. So it's
okay.
Spelled like a knot of a rope. Cannot. So I'll just drop it in the Telegram group for Wise Crowds. But the 6 questions themselves are, I'm going to grab them in the original order. I use them in a different order, but in the original order, question 1 is purpose. What is the fundamental justification for the existence of our work? Question 2 is context. What is happening around us that demands creative change? Question 3 is challenge. What paradoxical challenges must we face in order to make progress? Question 4 is baseline. Where are we starting honestly? Question 5 is ambition. Given our purpose, what seems possible now? And question 6 is action and evaluation. How are we acting our way towards the future, evaluating what is possible as we go? So these could also form like the line of inquiry. If you wanted to focus on them in order, come up with an order. It doesn't really matter, but those are 6 very good questions. Another structure that also jumped out to me was discovery, action, dialogue. Like the one that we did at that thing with Rich on Saturday. go through the 7 questions of, when it comes to dependable services, who are the heroes that and what do they do? So that could be a good way of mining the actual experience of folks. Well, Philip's already fucked off, and we're about close to the time bound. And I got to go pick up the kids. Gustavo, thanks for hanging out with us, man. And Unai as well. Always good to hang out. Thanks for supporting one another and dropping into the vibe. We're here most Mondays, so I'll see you guys around on the journey. Safe travels, huh?
Thank you, guys. Have a good rest
Thanks.
of the week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.